Pakistan claims it has launched a military operation against India, accusing India of escalating tensions in the region. The situation between the two nuclear powers continues to intensify as both sides exchange heavy artillery. US officials have confirmed that Pakistan used Chinese J-10 jets to launch missiles. India is currently involved in two conflicts, one with Pakistan, which is openly visible, and another, more covert, conflict with China. Just days after India conducted military strikes in response to recent terrorist attacks from Pakistan, Chinese state media and officials intensified their activities. Chinese social media platforms like Weibo and BU were flooded with anti-India propaganda, with hashtags like India attacks and or India open fired, rapidly gaining millions of views, framing India as the aggressor. Chinese influencers and even some official accounts spread unverified and exaggerated stories, including claims that multiple Indian Rafale jets had been shot down in dogfights. Chinese media outlets, such as the Global Times, published aggressive op-eds blaming India for the crisis, but omitted any mention of the terrorist attacks that sparked the conflict. These outlets also issued warnings to India, suggesting that China might intervene, using language reminiscent of threats made before the 1962 Sino-Indian War. In addition, some Chinese defense commentators shared old footage of PLA tanks and artillery near the Indian border, misleadingly presented as current military movements. Chinese state TV followed suit, making routine military drills appear as serious threats directed at India, emphasizing that China would not tolerate Indian expansionism. The term expansionism here refers specifically to Jammu and Kashmir, an Indian state that is disputed between India, Pakistan, and China. China's concern centers around the Shakgam Valley, which Pakistan ceded to China in 1963 under a bilateral agreement. India has consistently rejected this arrangement and asserts that all of Jammu and Kashmir, including Shakgam Valley and Aksai Chin, is an integral part of India. As tensions rise, the possibility of a full-scale war looms. If such a conflict were to occur, there is a significant chance that India could regain control over the entire region currently occupied by Pakistan, which could lead to Pakistan's internal collapse. This would destabilize Pakistan and could eventually contribute to the independence of Balochistan, along with further chaos in other provinces. China is keen to prevent this outcome, as it would undermine its Belt and Road Initiative, a $1 trillion project aimed at securing global economic influence. Furthermore, China has invested over $60 billion in Pakistan's infrastructure, including highways, railways, power plants, industrial zones, and the strategically important Gwadar port, which provides direct access to the Arabian Sea. This port is essential for China to bypass the Strait of Malacca, a critical shipping route that could be blocked during a conflict with rivals like India or the US. For China, a large-scale war that disrupts Pakistan's stability would result in severe economic setbacks, potentially undoing decades of progress. Yet, the possibility remains that China might seek to intervene under the pretext of safeguarding its investments, despite the risk of a long-term economic setback. Reason China is concerned. Last month, around April 7th, a rumor began circulating that Apple was planning to move its entire iPhone production out of China and into India. At first, it seemed unfounded, but upon further investigation, the Chinese government realized that not only was it true, but other major companies like Dell, Google, HP, Walmart, and several others were also considering similar moves. This rumor created significant concern for the Chinese government, as it could represent a major economic shift. The Chinese economy cannot afford such a significant blow, and this situation forced the government to respond. The Chinese leadership recognized that destabilizing India would make the country less attractive for large global companies. On April 22nd, India suffered a deadly terrorist attack, the most severe in over a decade. Looking at the situation, a troubling pattern begins to emerge. First, India was attacked, and Pakistan-based terrorist groups claimed responsibility. India responded with a measured military strike, avoiding escalation. However, Pakistan escalated the situation by launching missiles and drones at multiple Indian cities, killing civilians and causing injuries. This led to an increased risk of further escalation, leaving India with no choice but to respond. 4. China-Pakistan has long been seen as a strategic ally, and this long-standing rivalry with India makes Pakistan a useful proxy in this situation. The Chinese government, which has often been accused of disregarding human rights in various contexts, may have used Pakistan as a means to apply pressure on India without directly involving itself. Given China's history of actions like the Tiananmen Square incident and its treatment of ethnic minorities, it's not beyond the realm of possibility for the Chinese government to engage in such tactics. After the terrorist attack, the Chinese government likely believed that its strategy had worked. However, just 3 days later, Apple confirmed its decision to continue shifting production to India. Apple plans to manufacture up to $40 billion worth of iPhones in India by 2026, representing a substantial portion of iPhone sales in the US market. Now that China's economic plan has faced setbacks, the government's next moves may be extreme and potentially lead to a larger conflict. One area of concern is the region of Ladakh, particularly the Aksai Chin Plateau, a region China seized during the 1962 border conflict. This plateau holds immense strategic value as it connects directly to Tibet and Xinjiang, essential areas for China's military logistics. In a conflict, Chinese forces may attempt a two-pronged attack, advancing from both Aksai Chin and Pakistan-controlled areas. This could isolate Indian forces in Ladakh, compromising India's strategic positions in key areas such as the Siachen Glacier and the Karakoram Pass. China's military capabilities in the region, including advanced artillery and missile systems, could target Indian supply lines and bases, severely impacting India's ability to respond. The ultimate objective would likely be to secure Aksai Chin and possibly extend control over additional territory, strengthening China's position along the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. This would tighten China's strategic control over the region, forcing India to divert resources from its western border with Pakistan. Such a military move would also provide Pakistan with breathing room by drawing Indian forces away, a similar situation to what occurred during the 1965 Indo-Pakistani War, when China openly threatened India. Back then, Beijing refrained from actually attacking, but today, China's military is far more capable, and that old threat could easily become a reality. Unfortunately for India, China has been preparing for this exact scenario for decades. Massive infrastructure investments have given the PLA a serious mobility advantage across the entire Ladakh front. China has built all-weather highways, advanced air bases, and dozens of rapidly deployable brigade-sized camps along the line of actual control, LAC. Beijing's best strategy would be to catch India completely off guard, presenting New Delhi with an unavoidable situation before it even realizes what's happening. In fact, many analysts have openly warned that between 2025 and 2030, China holds a dangerous advantage over India, a window of opportunity where their local military edge could potentially guarantee victory. However, it's not as simple as it may sound on paper. Sure, China has the numbers, but in reality, warfare rarely follows predictable outcomes. 100 things could go disastrously wrong for Beijing. A clear example of this is the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. 3 years into the invasion, the Russian military remains stuck in a brutal and embarrassing stalemate. China could face the same fate, or even worse. For one, fighting at altitudes above 14,000 feet is an absolute nightmare. Even China's highly trained mountain units aren't immune to altitude sickness, extreme weather, and logistical challenges. Indian soldiers aren't rookies either. They've spent decades mastering this terrain. The Doklam area isn't an easy battlefield. It's one of the toughest terrains on Earth, and India has learned much from previous skirmishes. They've significantly improved infrastructure, bolstered mountain warfare training, and stocked advanced weaponry specifically for such a scenario. Moreover, if China openly engages in a war against India, they are essentially gambling with a geopolitical powder keg. India is not Ukraine. It is a nuclear-armed giant with powerful allies and strong diplomatic ties around the world. Countries like the United States, Japan, Australia, France, and the UK have deepened military and strategic ties with India to counter Chinese aggression. China's involvement in an all-out war could immediately trigger a massive international backlash, including economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and arms supplies pouring into India from the West. In an instant, China could find itself completely isolated on the global stage. Additionally, if China is seen actively collaborating with Pakistan to attack India, other regional powers such as Australia, Japan, and Southeast Asian countries, which are already uneasy about China's actions in the South China Sea, might quickly rally behind India. This could lead to the formation of an Asia-wide anti-China alliance. However, this is not just about Ladakh. There are still two other critical flashpoints that could dramatically change the course of the situation, each even more dangerous than the last. If Indian forces are stretched thin in Ladakh, Beijing's other offensive would come from the eastern Himalayas. This concerns the McMahon Line, the border separating China from Arunachal Pradesh, a state that Beijing calls South Tibet and claims as its own territory. The main focus would likely be the Tawang sector because it is the birthplace of the Dalai Lama. Capturing it wouldn't just give Beijing significant diplomatic leverage, it would also help tighten their control over the restive Tibetan population. Controlling Tawang would also mean militarily outflanking India's entire eastern defensive line, capturing critical high-altitude peaks that overlook the strategically important Brahmaputra Valley below. This wouldn't be the first time China has targeted the region. In 1962, Chinese forces captured Tawang at surprising speed and held it for nearly a month before withdrawing. In an all-out conflict, China could attempt the same again. Simultaneously, Chinese troops could launch coordinated assaults further east into areas like the Dibang and Lohit valleys. By forcing India to defend nearly 100 kilometers of difficult border terrain, China would make it impossible for Indian forces to concentrate effectively elsewhere. Indian defenses would quickly be spread too thin. If China manages even a limited successful incursion into Arunachal Pradesh, it would gain a devastating geopolitical bargaining chip. Imagine Beijing threatening to withdraw from Arunachal Pradesh, but only if India permanently drops its claims on Aksai Chin. However, as with Ladakh, it's not that simple. While China was able to invade Arunachal Pradesh in 1962, India was unprepared, ill-equipped, and caught by surprise. Today, the situation is entirely different. Not only is India better armed, but it is also battle-tested, extensively trained in jungle and mountain warfare, and well fortified with strong defensive positions that have been built up over decades. Remember, Arunachal Pradesh is a critical area.